Hey everybody, Jake here and welcome to the hobby. This video is a follow-up to my recent video where I did a PSA submission and so many of you guys were completely intrigued by it. I was answering questions on how you should do a PSA submission for literally hours, and I realized that there were a lot of misconception on what are the steps inside of the process. So I wanted to clear up a lot of that, some of the questions that I was getting again and again, and I'm gonna clear it up real fast right now. I will never claim to be an expert in any way, but I can state that I have sent many submissions into PSA, so I feel like I have a decent understanding of how things work, and this is just my 2 cents. I'm sure someone in the comments will completely blow me out the water with tons of knowledge, and that's totally fine. I'm always happy to learn more, but here's some of the frequent questions that I saw. All right, first question, where's their $10 service? To get their $10 service as well as a bunch of other deals, and PSA does have lots of different deals. I think in the summer they actually had a grading special on Pokemon cards where you could submit Pokemon cards for as low as $7.50 for a service fee, which is incredibly cheap. I know I sent in a lot of Pokemon cards at that specific level, but yeah, in general, if you want to get their value deal, you really have to become a PSA member, and this is very normal. CGC, I'm also a member of, as well as BGS. I'm a member of all of the big grading services, but that's to be expected. I think their lowest service fee or membership fee right now for PSA is $60, but don't quote me on that. I think they cut off their more expensive services because they just can't handle the amount of people signing up for their membership. It is an extra fee, an extra cost. So if you don't think it's worth it to become a PSA member, then don't. It's not something I would get to send in 1 or 2 cards. This is something that you would only really be worth it if you're planning on doing some long-term grading service with PSA or any of the other graders. Next, what is the minimum submission size for a PSA submission? And it really is 1 card. You can literally just send 1 card for submission, but that is very expensive because you're incurring shipping costs of 1 card, and the grading cost of a single card is going to be a lot higher than if you do a bulk service. So most people recommend get more cards if you really want to send some in for gradings. I think the smallest order I've ever done with PSA was only 7 cards, but that was a very specific order. I knew what I wanted and it was totally fine. In general, you want to submit in bulk because it's cheaper for you the more cards you send in at once, which is why there are a lot of other companies like Gem Mint or something like that where they will grade Pokemon cards on your behalf. You will put in your Pokemon cards with them. They'll send it into PSA as a very large bulk order, and that can reduce the cost significantly. Right now, to get their $10 service at PSA, you have to submit at least 20 Pokemon cards in your order. So not too shabby, but yeah, you can just submit 1 card. It's just depending on how much you want that 1 card graded, I suppose. The next biggest question I saw, and this is by far the most heated question, is how much you should value your Pokemon cards for before you send them in, because they do request that you give them a quote of how much cost or how much value you're sending into PSA. And this is very gray because there's a couple of different ways you can do this, but I'm going to tell you my method. And the only thing I can really say about my method is that I have never once been dinged or surcharged by PSA, because yes, you can get an extra surcharge or an extra fee if you put your Pokemon cards in the wrong valuation class. If you undervalue your Pokemon cards, then PSA can technically ding you and charge you an extra fee for being a doofus pretty much. I've never once incurred those fees, so at least I think I'm doing something right. So here's my methodology. To value my Pokemon cards, I usually go off of an estimate that my Pokemon cards, when sent into grading, will get a PSA 8 or a PSA 9. In most cases, I would assume that my cards are going to get a PSA 9 if I think that they are in perfect condition. I never assume that my Pokemon cards will come back as a PSA 10. Now that is not perfect. You can definitely assume that your cards are all PSA 10 and you can value them at that price point. That is not a right or wrong way of doing it. I just always value my Pokemon cards at a PSA 9. In my recent submission, that was where I set the value at for most of my Pokemon cards, where I just assumed that the vast majority of them will be PSA 9. Now, if they do come back as a PSA 10, you're saying, hey Jake, it will be over the value of where PSA expected it, because their maximum value for their value service is $199. But this is a rough estimate, and PSA are not devious. You know, if your Pokemon card at a PSA 10 is going for $400, I have never once been surcharged for something like that. It's just too close. I was very respectable in what I submitted, in good faith, in believing that my Pokemon cards were worth somewhere within that range of value. I've never once abused their service. Now, people have definitely abused PSA service in the past. In the past, many people have sent in cards that definitely should have never been put under their value service. For example, first edition base set Charizard. That is a card that should never be submitted under the value category, but people have done this in the past and it incurs a lot of issue for PSA. The number one reason that PSA even requests a value on your Pokemon cards is for insurance. This is actually the number one reason. In case your Pokemon cards get damaged, missing, destroyed, or lost somehow inside of their grading process, they need your cards to be insured. Right now at PSA's facility, they're holding on to a multi-million-dollar warehouse full of collectibles, and that is very, very risky. If anything is lost inside there, they need to know pretty much how much to pay their customer, pay their members on whatever fees that they charge, right? So when I submitted my Pokemon cards, I value it pretty much based on how much I'm willing to lose, right? If all of my cards went missing somewhere at PSA facility, am I willing to just take the raw value that I provided to them? If I'm happy with that, then that's what matters. One example is that I recently sent in 10 base set Blastoise to PSA for grading. This was a couple of months ago before the large boom, and I assumed that most of my base set Blastoise were worth around $200, so not too shabby, and I sent them in under the value category because they were probably around a PSA 8, which at the time was going for around $200. That is a great, respectable guess by me. When I got my Blastoise back, one of them turned out to be a PSA 10. That was a surprise on my end that I had a PSA 10 in the group, which is great, no complaints there, right? And a base set PSA 10 Blastoise is worth over $1,000. So you would assume, well, Jake, you probably got dinged. No, I did not get dinged because I was respectable in my valuation. If I had lost all those cards, right, if they were ever lost, stolen, or destroyed, I would have been insured for the value of those Blastoise, which was $200 per card, and I would have been happy with that. If you are sure that your card is a PSA 10, then value it at a PSA 10 because that is going to insure you for a lot more, so that if your card gets lost, like I stated, then you are compensated correctly for your loss. But that's the number one reason for the valuation is insurance. So if you think that your cards are at a lower value and you're willing to take that lower value, then PSA can pretty much give you that lower value. This is purely for insurance purposes. So as long as you're being respectable and reasonable with your Pokemon card valuation, you'll be fine, give or take a little bit. You know, a little bit of error, if your card is worth a lot more now as a PSA 10 or something like that, you're very unlikely to get a surcharge. And a surcharge is not technically a bad thing. What that pretty much means is your Pokemon card is worth a lot more than you expected it. And that is not something that you should be angry at. So I'm not too worried if I do get a surcharge on my collectibles that I sent in for submissions, and I'm happy to take it. Most likely, I think I was well within the realm of reasonableness when I sent in my cards for grading, so it's very unlikely that I'll get dinged or surcharged on any of my cards. As a part of your PSA submission, you can set a minimum grade that you will accept for your Pokemon cards. What this means is you can type in PSA 10. And if your Pokemon card does not meet your minimum requirement, then your card will come back to you ungraded. This does occur every now and again when people want a certain grade level or bust. So if you want your card as a PSA 8 minimum and you got yourself maybe a 6 or a 7, then they just won't grade your card. They'll send it right back to you. I've never once selected that option. It's just an extra cost, and I always prefer them grading my cards. No matter how low the grade is, I still want to see what grade it gets. So I usually leave it blank. And for how much I value my Pokemon cards, I usually value them. If they are what I consider gem mint, then I'll value them at a PSA 9 level. And I'm usually happy with that. If my cards are ever lost and stolen, then that's the value I'll get for them, which is a PSA 9, and I'm happy to take that value. The next biggest question I saw come up was, how do you package your Pokemon cards for submission? You should always submit your Pokemon cards in a soft sleeve as well as a rigid hard sleeve. And your soft sleeve is really common. I will give a link down in the description where you can purchase them, but these are very simple. They're your basic clear plastic sleeves. They only go for a couple pennies. You sleeve your Pokemon cards up inside of those. And your rigid sleeves, you have a lot of different options now. In the past, PSA would only take card savers, and I'm still using card savers to today because that's the way I'm used to it. I would not feel comfortable sending them any other way. I will also have a link in the description for card savers if you would like to purchase them. They're really great for preserving Pokemon cards. Even if you don't want to submit your Pokemon cards, just leaving them inside of card savers will be fine for literally years. There will be no damage to your cards. That's really great. But in general, right now, PSA will take top loaders. You see me put my Pokemon cards in top loaders all the time. You just drop your Pokemon cards inside of the top loader. You tap it a couple of times and it falls to the bottom. Looks great. They will take top loaders. There will also be a link in the description if you like to purchase some Ultra Pro top loaders. Those are the most common ones that I use. Ultra Pro would never sponsor me. I tried, they wouldn't do it, but that's all right. But card savers is way better. Those are the ones that I've always used. And there's a little bit of contention between Card Saver 1 and Card Saver 2. Card Saver 1 is far superior to Card Saver 2. I've used both. And the problem with Card Saver 2 is that the fit is just too tight. You're gonna really struggle to put your Pokemon cards inside of Card Saver 2, and you do risk damaging your Pokemon cards. Card Saver 1 is a little bit bigger, but it just gives enough room for you to really slide your Pokemon cards in easy, and it's very affordable. It's a very small cost when you think about the grand scheme of grading your Pokemon cards. It's an extra, 50 cents maybe per card to be inside of Card Saver, but it gives you a massive peace of mind. Next most common question is, how long will it take for PSA to grade your Pokemon cards? Who knows? It's a mystery right now. Honestly, for their value service, I'm looking at reasonably close to 8 to maybe 12 months. 8 to 12 months is how long I expect it would take for my submission to come back to me. And I think that's very reasonable with how long it takes. On a normal service, it would take around 2 or 3 months max. But right now it's special circumstances where things are just taking a lot longer. If you would like your Pokemon cards faster, they do offer an express service as well as a super express service for a significant surcharge increase, but you do get your Pokemon cards back a lot faster. So if that's important to you, then that's also an available option. But yeah, I don't expect cards back anytime soon right now. There are pretty much no promises and no guarantees from PSA right now on how long it'll take, and that's just something that we're gonna have to deal with. Final question is, do you get your soft sleeves or top loaders or rigid sleeves or card savers back after your submission? And no, you do not get any of those supplies back. They are lost. Pretty much PSA destroys them in the process of grading your Pokemon cards. As the way I understand it, and I've never toured their actual facilities, but as I understand it, human hands are not touching your Pokemon cards to take them out of their top loaders or card savers. You know, there's no one prying their fingers inside there and pulling out your Pokemon cards or something like that. A machine cuts the card saver and your Pokemon card pretty much just pops out without any potential damage happening to your Pokemon card. So no, you do not get your card savers, top loaders, your box, your bubble wrapping, or any other piece of supply back. You'll pretty much get your cards back inside of their PSA graded case and nothing else. Alright everybody, that's the end of today's video, and I hope that was a solid follow-up and it answered a lot of your guys' question. If you have any additional question, feel free to ask me down in the comments and I'll do my best to answer your question. Specifically, valuing Pokemon cards seem to be the most confusing area, and I totally understand that because of how tricky it is. How do you know what grade your Pokemon cards are going to get? Which is why I just make it a rule of thumb to grade mine at around a PSA 9 and value it at that price before I send my cards in. You can definitely value your cards at a PSA 10. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can even value them at a 5 if you really wanted to. But that might be a little bit too cheap. So if you lose your cards, you're going to get less money for the insurance cost of your cards. And if you value them at a 10, there's nothing wrong with that either, because if your cards are lost, you'll get more money. That's pretty much how it works. The service fee is definitely a little bit higher, but at least it's going with what you stated yourself, so no big deal. Anyway, those were my main answers, so hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.